In this episode today, I speak with Phil Maltby and Trevor Homfray-Cooper, two AOG GB ministers who work in the area of military chaplaincy. Coming up to Remembrance Sunday, this Sunday, it's so important that we remember what the military in our nation do to serve and protect us. But we also talk about military chaplaincy itself and how, if you are feeling called to military chaplaincy, what you can do, the type of person you need to be. And I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's a really interesting conversation. Now, before we get started, if you are an AOG GB minister here, then I need to tell you about CPD. CPD stands for Continuous Professional Development. It's a place where you can log and track all of your development resources. So your books, your podcasts, like this one, you can log it, your courses that you've been going on. It's a place where you can log and track. You've got a record of it over time so that you can see how you're growing over the years. Make sure that you sign up for it. If you haven't done already, go to portal.aoggb.com and you can sign up today. Right, on with the podcast. That CPD Show. Welcome back to That CPD Show. My name is Chris. I'll be your host for today. And I'm in different surroundings as I'm not in my usual place. I am here in the AOG offices and I'm delighted to be joined by Phil Maltby and Trevor Homfray-Cooper. So Phil and Trevor, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, brilliant. We are going to be diving into all about the world of military chaplaincy today. But I think before we dive into all of that, it'd be really great just to kind of get to know you a little bit. And so should we start with Phil? Phil, it'd be great to know a little bit about you, what you do. And so, yeah, would you just tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, of course. No, it's good to be here, Chris. Thanks for letting us join you today. So I'm a pastor of an AOG church in Preston, and as part of my, I'm bivocational, as part of my work outside of AOG, I work with a different denomination on military chaplaincy, and I've been doing that for about 10 years now. And so through the process of learning a lot about military chaplaincy, AOG eventually said, would you like to be our representative on the United Board for military chaplaincy, which represents about 12 different denominations, and they're kind of like the sending body to the Army and the Navy and the Air Force for all prospective military chaplains. So I said I'd love to do that. I'd love to help serve the movement in that way, and that's how I have come to be in this role.
Fantastic. And Trevor, it'd be great to hear a little bit about you and what you do. So Trevor, introduce yourself to the watchers and listeners.
Sure. It's great to be here as well. Thank you. My name is Trevor Homfray-Cooper. I am an Assemblies of God Army chaplain. I've been doing that for 6.5 years. And before that, I was a church pastor of two different churches for a total of 14 years and married to Zoe. And we have two grown-up children who are both involved in leading churches elsewhere in the country.
That's fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Well, we are here to talk about military chaplaincy today. This episode will be going out around about the time of Remembrance Sunday. So I would really sort of like to kick this discussion off, really, to talk a little bit about remembrance, really. And maybe Trevor, I'll start with you. What does remembrance mean to you?
Well, remembrance is a hugely important opportunity to commemorate those who have given their lives in service of our nation. But it's not just about looking back, but it's holding memory in such a way that it shapes how we live today. And within the military, it's even more poignant because as current soldiers and officers, they seek to honour and remember those who've gone before in conflicts both recent and further ago. But it also just the support of the wider country that's displayed at this time is a great encouragement to those of us in the armed forces. And for me as a military chaplain, it is a busy time because it's my honour to lead people in acts of remembrance, both within the military community and in our local communities.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Phil, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. What's remembrance? What does that mean to you? And I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. For me, privately, it's a time to remember those who've given so much to us as a country, who've paid a high price that we can enjoy the peace that we've currently got. And as someone who's always been a civilian and only recently come alongside the armed forces, I think I've got a really big appreciation now for what they do and have done on our behalf. And I certainly didn't have that awareness before. But as a pastor, it's also an opportunity for me to lead others in this act of remembrance as well. And so trying to educate and help people to understand what remembrance is about and why we do it, especially in a cross-cultural context. I think it's a really good challenge to be talking to our people about what this means and why we do it, because it's not necessarily something that is marked all around the world in quite the same way. So it's quite an interesting dynamic as you're coming up to a remembrance service to think about who's going to be there and what might be helpful for them to know in order to actually do this well. And certainly in recent years, we've gained a lot from asking our military chaplains to actually record something of what remembrance means to them and then making that available to churches to actually use, because we recognise that for many pastors it's not something that they've ever experienced before themselves. So actually trying to give them a helping hand is something we can do from the military chaplaincy perspective.
Yeah, that's great. When I was thinking about this podcast, I was thinking about the famous phrase that comes from Remembrance, which is "lest we forget," and it made me think. It would be great to get both of your thoughts on this, and maybe Trevor, will start with you. Do you think that we've started to forget as a British society about remembrance? Has that started to, that "lest we forget"? Have we actually started to forget? I'd love to get your thoughts on it.
It's a difficult one because obviously we don't have that memory going back many years personally, but I think as we move further away from conflicts such as the two world wars and even Afghanistan and Iraq, that were significant involvement for armed forces, then the memory becomes a bit more historical than personal. But obviously with the current conflicts ongoing in Ukraine and instability in other parts of the world, that does raise public awareness of conflicts and the need for peace. But also within the military, more and more of our armed forces, thankfully, have not experienced direct conflict themselves. But for me, I'm encouraged as I travel around, drive around. It's great to see the number of communities that do make a significant effort for remembrance. You know, seeing all the poppies and the displays, the figurines of service personnel in silhouette that are shown. Therefore, people are grabbing hold of the idea that yes, it's less personal. It's not our generation. It's not even the previous generation, but it is still something that we need to pass on that message and commemorate and learn the lessons of the past. And so I think that remembrance will remain integral to our society, but maybe how we stop forgetting is going to change.
Yeah, I'd love to come to you on this, Phil. What do you think we have to lose if we do forget? What is that lest that we forget? So, Phil, talk to me a little bit about that, and from your point of view.
Yeah, I think as Trevor made the point earlier, that actually it's how remembrance reminds us to actually shape our lives and work for peace. And I think there's phrasing around, that implies that unless we're willing to sweat and bleed in the pursuit of peace, we're much more likely to sweat and bleed in the pursuit of war. And so actually that kind of sense of are we prepared to put the effort in now in order to work for peace and pray for peace and be people of peace, because if we're not, then more than likely conflict will crash down upon us. And actually it's important that we don't forget the sacrifices that others have made, because we're living in the peace and the fruit of what others have done for us. So I think it puts things into sharp relief when you think about it like that actually we've got a choice in every generation about what we will give our lives for, and it's easy to let some things run out of hand and become much bigger than they need to be. And that's where we have an opportunity to pray and speak and act for peace, and that's the challenge upon every generation. And I think certainly for me it's a lot about educating those generations who don't have that personal experience, and how do we do that as pastors. I think something that I would really encourage pastors to do is, if you know of or you become aware of veterans in your community, spend some time talking to them about what life has been like for them, what they've seen, how it's affected them, how it's affected their family, just because it gives you an informed perspective to then carry into your peacemaking in whatever context you're in. And I think that can be really insightful, albeit not every veteran wants to speak openly about what they've experienced. I understand that. But, actually, though, many people are willing to share that with you privately, because there's such a wealth of experience and insight that they've got that we could gain from.
It's certainly, honouring what those people that it's their job, but it's their life that they put into this. And so certainly for those people that have given service to our country, to honour them by just listening to them, to listening to their perspective, so important. And I think that's where it comes. When we're talking about the importance of the role and the role of the military in our country and things like that, where we come into having the need for military chaplains. And so I'd love to really find out, maybe Trevor, will go to you on this one. How did you become a military chaplain, and what was that journey like, moving from, you said you were a minister and then became a military chaplain. So talk to me about how you got into it.
Sure. It's been a long journey, because right from starting as a pastor, I've had links with and involvement with chaplaincy, because I see it as a great opportunity to be alongside people who aren't part of the church normally. So I started in Biggleswade as a pastor there after leaving Mattersey Old World College, and my wife got a job with the about to open Asda store in the town. And she was appointed as the sort of public relations person, and one of her responsibilities was to find a voluntary chaplain for the about to open store. And so she said, "I know just the person I could volunteer, my husband." So I became the chaplain of the Asda store in Biggleswade, and that was a great privilege, just to be able to come alongside staff and customers and be seen and wear a badge saying Trev the Rev, that I was able to be approachable and be alongside people. And so that was my introduction to chaplaincy. And then I got involved in hospital chaplaincy alongside my church work. I was a sort of part-time on-call hospital chaplain for a total of about 10 years, both in Biggleswade or Bedfordshire and in Lincoln. And that was also a privilege, to be able to come alongside people in that sphere of difficult circumstances often. And because I've had that involvement in chaplaincy, I was obviously on various distribution lists, emails, as we tend to get, and I received one that had an advert at the top for Army chaplains wanted, and I'd never considered it before. I just thought, wow, yeah, that sounds interesting. I've always enjoyed the outdoors. I've always enjoyed keeping fit, but most importantly, I enjoy coming alongside people, and so started to pray about it, talk about it with my wife Zoe, and talk to other military chaplains that I knew, and that started the journey. And applied. You go and visit a unit, so you sort of have that familiarization of what goes on, and then you have to apply to both the army and to your sending church, which Phil is involved in, which for Assemblies of God is the United Board. So you have to sort of get through the hurdle of the United Board. That's quite a grilling of how you will minister in that sort of setting. And then you go through the Army officer selection process, which is also challenging, but I enjoyed that as well. And then if you're successful, then you go to training, both chaplaincy specific training and Sandhurst as well, the officer training, which is has its challenges, but also, I really enjoyed that opportunity to experience the military, to get trained and do everything that the other cadets are doing, apart from using weapons. As chaplains, we're not allowed to use or carry weapons or ammunition. And so that was the sort of how I got into it. And 6.5 years later, I'm still loving the job.
No, that's great. Talk to me about what do you love about the job?
Well, as with any other context, chaplaincy is about coming alongside people, and that is part of what I love about this role. It's I am employed by our nation, by the king, if you like, to be able to provide spiritual support and pastoral care and moral guidance to soldiers and officers and their families. And I found it absolutely amazing privilege that I get to wear this uniform, and everyone knows me as Padre, which you may know means father. And I honestly believe that I'm here to represent Father God in the context that I find myself. And so it's the amazing access, the privilege of conversations that take place, whether it's about faith or relationships or household work or just the football scores or whatever. It's amazing to see that faith is able to be expressed in the military. And just last week or the week before, my colleagues at Sandhurst, they baptized 10 cadets who have, through those conversations, have expressed that they want to be following Christ. And then 3 months ago, another 6 were baptized, and that is sort of in contrast to the 2 in the whole of last year. So it's great to see the opportunities that we have, and I do consider it a real privilege to be here and doing this job.
I mean, for me, the military is like a world that I just don't know anything about, really, except for what, you see on TV and, things like that. But I'd love to find out from you, what does a typical day as a military chaplain, what does it look like? What are you doing day to day?
Well, like you, I knew nothing about the military before the Holy Spirit prompted me as I saw that advert, and I started to investigate, and I knew nothing about it. But another thing I love about the job is that there is no typical day, that every day is different, and there are different opportunities. There are standard things set in the diary. So there are meetings to attend and provide that sort of moral input to, or spiritual input. Then there are the physical training, sort of sports and activities that we can and should take part in. And I love that, for not only for my own physical benefit, but also as another opportunity to come alongside people. So I might be running alongside a group of soldiers, or we're carrying each other around, or doing weights in the gym, or whatever, doing sports, and that's fantastic. Then there are maybe church services or other events we're doing here. We're doing church every Sunday. We do messy church, and we have a fellowship group during the week as well, and other ad hoc things, special events. So obviously remembrance services and things throughout the year that we do that are of a sort of spiritual, religious side of things. But the variety of the job as well. This time last year, I was in Estonia on a 6-month deployment with my regiment, and so that was amazing to be there and be that welfare support, that pastoral care for about 1,000 soldiers. I was the only chaplain there on the base providing that care, and yes, it was hard being away from wife and family, but it's just a fantastic opportunity to be in amongst what's going on, whether it's out in the field watching the guys running around with their guns, or being alongside them as they're working on cleaning their equipment, their vehicles, or just going out and taking part in some of the fun activities. I've been skiing, I've been mountain biking overseas, and just being able to travel around both the UK and the world. You know, I was trying to think of places, obviously Estonia, North Macedonia, Poland, Cyprus, Dubai, Germany, France, and Andorra. I think are the places that I've been in the last 6.5 years, and it's just fantastic to be able to do that, and just whatever crops up. That's what my day job is. You know, I don't have any given outputs. I'm just there to be there for people, and that's a real privilege that I love.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thought of doing a messy church in the officer's mess, that sounds like it feels like it should fit very nicely.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But we do have a church building we do it in, and
Yeah.
so that's fair enough. But the officers' mess does sound like an interesting. The children that come to the messy church probably behave a bit more grown up than the officers sometimes.
Yeah.
Particularly after a dinner night. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to dive into some of the when I was thinking about this and putting some questions together, I was aware that probably for thinking about, you know, with the military, there's a lot of ethical questions that come up, and I wonder whether you could talk to that, Trevor, about maybe some of the ethical questions that come up when you're doing this. And I think it speaks to, you know, even when we're thinking, even as ministers in churches, there are these kind of ethical questions that we have to face, and I'm sure you face them. And so talk about some of those ethical questions and how you navigate those when you've got, officers, when you've got people coming to speak to you about those kind of things. How do you navigate some of those topics?
Yeah, well, one of the pivotal parts of our role is to provide that moral guidance, and we are seen as the subject matter experts when it comes to providing that input. And so we have that access to the senior officer, the commanding officer, and we're expected to speak up when we feel things are not right, when we feel things need to change, whether it's ethos or behaviours in the regiment, or whether it's decisions that are being made, that we can provide some guidance or say, have you considered this? And so that's part of our job title, or responsibility, if you like, is to be that moral guide, and you know, the Jiminy Cricket, if you like, on the shoulder of Pinocchio, that we are there to be the conscience of the regiment and the army. And so, you know, although I haven't personally, I know chaplains who have had involvement in people that are making those decisions about whether or not it is right to drop a bomb on a situation, or that sort of thing can be a real challenging ethical dilemma. But down to the talking to a person about whether it's right to take a life or not, or because in the army that's what people may be called to do, and those sort of discussions can be a real challenge. And you know, I really thank God that He provides wisdom in circumstances. You know, I haven't directly had to talk to people about taking life, but I have talked to people about the morality of being in an army, the British Army, which I'm thankful for, is not one that causes aggression. We are not one that goes out to pick fights with other people. We are there to defend ourselves and our allies. And so that's something that I've been able to talk to people about and say, I'm not a chaplain, I'm not part of the army because I agree with taking life or don't agree. It's about doing the right thing in the difficult situations, and that can be even down to just talking to people who are living in a way that I don't agree with. You know, people whose lifestyles or belief systems are contrary to what I believe. But as Jesus modeled, we are there to show compassion and support and love and care for those people around us. And so even when someone is just living in a way that I don't believe, I still love them. I still care for them and support them in whatever way I feel I can. And I will offer to pray for people as well. And that's important, that prayer is central to the decisions that I make, my lifestyle, that people see me as not just an odd bod in the corner of things, but someone who is consistent, someone of integrity, and someone who is willing to speak up, but at the same time is a good person to be around and have around. And one of the greatest compliments I had when I was in Estonia was one of the soldiers said to me, "Padre, you're always friendly. People always talk to you and be want to hear from you." And I thought, that's very kind of you to say that. But I thought, surely if myself as the representative, if you like, with the crosses on my shoulder of Christ, is not a friendly person, then I'm not doing my job right. So I think it's important that I am standing up for what is right, but standing up for what is right with love and compassion, and demonstrating that to others in whatever way I can.
Yeah, it seems like such a impactful job to have, a impactful role to have. You're talking to people that are going through. It's there's the difficult ethical questions, but also, of course, they could be going into very difficult situations, and to have that impact, to have that influence in people's lives when they're when it is literally those difficult situations. So what an honor to be able to have that, and it's absolutely brilliant that you can have that influence and impact in our military. It's absolutely fantastic. Phil, I'd love to come to you now, because maybe there's some people hearing what Trevor's been saying and they're thinking, wow, that's actually, that sounds really, maybe more than just that sounds like an interesting job, but more that maybe that's for me. I wonder what sort of what kind of person makes a really great military chaplain? What kind of person do you need to be?
Yeah, I think Trevor's done a fantastic job of selling it there, and I would pick up some of the points that Trevor's made. You need to be a people person. You need to be comfortable with flexibility. You need to be someone who is ready to invest in your physical training as well as somebody who enjoys getting alongside folks who are doing their physical training as well. So you don't have to be uber fit, but you have to be prepared to work on your fitness and to maintain it, so that you can to play your part in eventually if you're out on the battlefield and needing to do things out there. So but I would say it's definitely for those who are called to it. And I think the question then, well, how do you know you're called to it if you don't know what it involves, or you haven't spoken to people who are doing it? And that's where we're trying to encourage as many folks as possible to express an interest, because we can then set them up with opportunities to go and have a look at chaplains who are already doing it and talk to those folks and actually come alongside them and say, what is it you do? How do you do it? Why do you do it? Where do you do it? And answer all those sorts of questions. So, we're really trying to encourage as many folks across AOG to express an interest, because unless you know what it involves, how do you know you're called to it? So we've got routes into chaplaincy that we can support people with. Like Trevor said, there was an initial kind of understanding from chaplaincy that this might be a different form of chaplaincy that he wanted to try. And I think it's really for those people who are wanting to explore, maybe do ministry in a different context entirely. It is a distance from the church. So somebody who's capable of building relationships with people who are quite differently focused than folks inside the church, it's probably fair to say. So just getting alongside. But if you're interested, then I just encourage you to email us. You can email us at chaplaincy@aoggb.com. We will get in touch with you once we've heard from you, and then we'll explain a little bit more about the process. And the thing is, you have to be ordained, so you have to have your ministry credentials through the MIT program. If you haven't already done that, you'd need to get onto that and explore that first. But that was certainly my experience, was that I was enjoying meeting military chaplains and thought, well, if I ever want to do that, I've got to get on with my MIT and get ordained. So I've done that. I've enjoyed that journey. I'm now in church leadership, and I'm enjoying that too. But it all is with the thought that maybe one day that will be something that I can offer through to the military as a chaplain, and who knows where God will take me. But you have to go on that journey. The one thing we are looking for is our first female chaplain to the military from within AOG. So we've got an event coming up on the 29th of January, which is going to be a webinar, and we're just inviting women from across AOG. Whether you're ordained yet or not doesn't matter, but just we'll put some publicity out about that scene and sign up for that, because again, it's just an opportunity to hear more. We'll have some women who are already chaplains in the military from other denominations talking and sharing about what life is like, because we'd really like to see AOG's first female chaplain to the military sooner rather than later. So that'd be really good.
Yeah, absolutely, and we can put that the link to that in the show notes. So make sure you send that to me afterwards, and we'll put that in the show notes. That'd be absolutely fantastic. Phil, especially I said at the top of the show that this show's going out around Remembrance Day, and Remembrance Sunday's coming up, and I wonder, how could we as AOG churches, how could we pray for our military?
I think Trevor's given us a really helpful insight, and that's around having the wisdom to know what's right, and then the courage to do what's right in all the different challenging circumstances that our military find themselves in. I think that's a really good place to start. I think the next thing I'd say is to pray for their families too, because they make a sacrifice on behalf of their loved one who is out there serving the country, and oftentimes that's a huge sacrifice that isn't seen more broadly. So I think praying for their families too, is a really helpful thing to do. And if you're interested to pray more deeply for the military, then there's something called the Armed Forces Christian Union, which you can just search up online, and they've got prayer resources. And if you want to partner with people to pray for Christians in the military, they can put you in touch with somebody who's currently serving, and then you can establish a relationship to pray for someone who's currently in the military, which is just a great opportunity to learn more, and is something that I'd encourage anybody across AOG to do, because there's a real openness currently amongst young people to spiritual matters. And so we're hearing, as Trevor's already said, lots of people who are coming in to the entry points of the military, and they're actually just so open to hearing from the padres about faith and about Christianity and about what Jesus has done for them, that there are lots and lots of Christians now who are baby Christians in the military, and who we could be praying for very actively and actually developing links with. So if you're interested, just search up AFCU, and they will put you in touch with people to pray for as well. So I think there's so many ways in which we can pray for folks, but perhaps there are some good leads there.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that it's such an exciting opportunity for ministers to really have a real impact, to consider doing military chaplaincy, but also for us as just people in churches and AOG churches to support our military chaplains and make sure that we're praying for them, championing what you're doing. I think it's such a vital, important role, and so yeah, really, really brilliant. And we'll make sure we put that link in the show notes, as I just said. Well, it leaves only one final question in this podcast today, and that question is, some say it's the most important question. I wouldn't say that necessarily, but it is a very important question, and I'm actually very excited about this one, because I'm going to ask both of you. I'll start with Trevor first. Trevor, I'm really excited. What is your favourite dessert?
Dear me, that is a tough one, because I have a very sweet tooth, and so I struggle to name one, but I love caramel type desserts, or those sort of desserts. And my wife Zoe makes a really awesome toffee apple mess, which is like Eton mess, but without the strawberries, and it has apple and toffee sauce and fudge pieces all over it, and it's fantastic. And that, I think, is currently top of my list of favourites.
So it's a toffee mess, you say? Toffee mess?
Toffee apple mess.
Toffee apple mess. Oh, very, very good. Oh, very excellent. And I have to ask, what's your favourite military dessert? You know, if you're in the barracks or whatever, wherever you are, what are you going for when you're going for lunch?
Well, I'm glad you didn't ask if I was out in the field and I was eating a ration pack, because the ration pack desserts are not the best. They're sort of there's like a chocolate cake thing that's like a dry lump of whatever it is, but that's not great. But I probably wouldn't go for much of a dessert in the coffee shop, in the cafe on site, unless we're having a mess dinner, and then I'd probably go for something like a sticky toffee pudding or something like that, if they haven't got my wife's toffee apple mess on the menu.
Absolutely. It's a really good. We've never had a toffee apple mess before. Lots of Eton messes. People love an Eton mess. And I'm liking this theme that's coming through. You know, we've got the officers' mess, we've got messy church, we've got toffee apple mess. It feels like it's a theme which is running through. So I love that. Phil, I'm going to come to you as well. What is your favourite dessert?
Well, I have to say that there is a lady in our church who just makes the most divine trifle. So if I could have my choice, I would have one of Jackie's homemade trifles because they are just simply delicious. And if I'm not careful, I can eat the whole thing myself in one of those big bowls, you know, like a presentation thing. I could eat it all myself, and I'd regret it afterwards, but it's absolutely divine. So one of those moments, you just got to be there to have experienced it. But when you have, gosh, you want more.
Oh, that's fantastic. There have been a lot of trifle fans on the show, and so you're joining the ranks of many great people who do love a trifle. So yeah, excellent choice. Well, I think that's all for today. So Phil and Trevor, thank you so much for joining me. It's been absolutely brilliant. I think for ministers out there who are interested maybe in exploring military chaplaincy, I think just check it out. The email was it chaplaincy@aoggb.com. That's it. So if you're interested, just want to find out more, email chaplaincy@aoggb.com, and we can take that conversation further. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you both very soon.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of That CPD Show. For more episodes, why not subscribe and give us a review? It really helps us out. See you next time.